Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. In today's hyper-connected world, information isn't just power, it's also, let's be honest, a colossal potential vulnerability.
It's putting it mildly.
And you, our diligent listener, sent us a fascinating stack of documents. The European Union Agency for Cybersecurity's, or ENISA's, technical implementation guidance for the NIS2 Directive cybersecurity risk management measures. And let me tell you, it's packed with detail, full of nuances, and it's exactly the kind of material we love to unravel.
Indeed, what's truly compelling here is that this isn't abstract theory. This June 2025 guidance from ENISA is a pivotal document for a vast array of entities operating across Europe.
Right.
Especially those providing critical services in sectors like digital infrastructures, energy, transport, and health. It's designed to unpack the intricate technical and methodological requirements of the NIS2 Directive, specifically drilling down into the Commission implementing Regulation EU 2024-2690.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to cut through that complexity. We want to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, simplify the dense details, and help you grasp not just what these requirements are,
which is important enough.
Exactly, but crucially, why they matter to your organization and how they can be practically implemented. Think of this as your personal accelerator, giving you a comprehensive understanding of a topic that is fundamentally reshaping European cybersecurity.
Well put.
We'll be looking at actionable advice, concrete examples of evidence, and vital mappings to recognized industry good practices and international standards.
All right, let's start by painting the big picture then. The NIS2 Directive's overarching goal is incredibly ambitious: to achieve a high common level of cybersecurity across the entire European Union.
A high common level, yeah.
At its heart, it's about building digital resilience, ensuring that critical services and infrastructures aren't just protected from cyber attacks, but can also effectively withstand and rapidly recover from them.
So resilience, not just prevention.
Precisely. This isn't merely about protecting individual companies, it's about safeguarding the EU's entire interconnected digital ecosystem.
And when we talk about its breadth, it's truly remarkable. NIS2 directly impacts all EU member states, compelling them to establish national requirements for cybersecurity risk management within their respective critical sectors.
Right, so there's an EU layer and a national layer.
Exactly. So while there's a unifying EU-wide objective, there's also built-in national flexibility in how those requirements are applied. But then we hit the Commission implementing Regulation EU 2024-2690, and that's where the rubber truly meets the road, isn't it?
It really is. This regulation exists for a very specific reason. For certain digital infrastructure and ICT service management subsectors, the requirements simply had to be set at the EU level.
Why is that?
Well, because these services are inherently cross-border. Imagine a major cloud service provider or a domain name system, a DNS provider. They don't operate within single national borders. Of course, a significant cyber incident impacting one of them could send immediate ripple effects across the entire union, making a unified approach absolutely essential.
And it's not some distant future concept, is it? This regulation was actually published on October 17th, 2024.
That's right.
Meaning it's already in force. It directly lays down those detailed technical and methodological requirements for risk management measures under Article 21.2 of NIS2.
Correct. So this begs the question, who's the trusted guide helping organizations navigate this increasingly complex landscape? That's where ENISA, the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, steps in.
ENISA, right.
Established back in 2004 and significantly strengthened by the EU Cybersecurity Act, ENISA's mandate is quite broad. They contribute to EU cyber policy, work to enhance the trustworthiness of ICT products and services through certification schemes.
Like the cybersecurity certification framework.
Exactly that kind of thing. They also cooperate extensively with member states and other EU bodies, and fundamentally help prepare Europe for the evolving cyber challenges of the future.
And the way they help is through vital knowledge sharing, capacity building, and raising awareness across the board. They're not just about setting rules, they're about empowering everyone to truly understand and effectively implement these critical measures.
Which is key.
Thereby strengthening trust and boosting resilience throughout the EU.
Which brings us directly to the guidance document itself. It's vital to understand its true nature. This is technical guidance.
Okay, so not law.
Not legally binding, no. It's purely advisory. Its sole purpose is to support the implementing regulation. It provides indicative and actionable advice on various parameters organizations should consider, offers concrete examples of evidence you could use to demonstrate compliance,
Which is super helpful.
and includes invaluable mappings that link these security requirements to established industry good practices, as well as European and international standards and even national frameworks.
And what's truly smart about this is that it's designed as a living document. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means ENISA plans to review and update it regularly. They acknowledge that cybersecurity standards and the threat landscape itself are constantly, rapidly evolving.
So it won't become outdated quickly.
Hopefully not. In a world where new threats emerge daily, static guidance just wouldn't cut it.
Makes sense. So who exactly needs to pay attention to this guidance? Who's in scope?
The document is quite specific, targeting a diverse range of entities, predominantly those providing foundational digital services that underpin much of our modern economy. We're talking about domain name system, or DNS, service providers, essentially the phone book of the internet.
Crucial stuff.
And top-level domain, or TLD, name registries, which manage things like .com or .eu.
And it extends to the very infrastructure we rely on. Cloud computing service providers, which host so much of our digital world, and data center service providers, the physical homes, for all that data.
But the list goes further. It includes Content Delivery Network, or CDN, providers that ensure quick delivery of website content globally, and managed service providers, or MSPs, and managed security service providers, MSSPs, who handle IT and security for other businesses.
So a lot of the outsourced IT world.
Definitely. It also covers providers of online marketplaces, online search engines, and social networking services platforms, alongside trust service providers who handle digital identities and electronic signatures. This list vividly illustrates that the guidance targets the very backbone of our digital infrastructure and economy.
Okay, that's a broad range. And to give you a high-level roadmap of the ground this guidance covers, it breaks down into 13 core technical and methodological requirements.
13, right?
These span everything from broad foundational policies like security of network and information systems and risk management, all the way down to granular, detailed aspects such as incident handling, business continuity, and crisis management, and the often complex area of supply chain security.
It also delves into security considerations during network and information systems acquisition, development, and maintenance, essentially, building security in from the start.
Secure by design.
Then there are policies and procedures to assess the effectiveness of cybersecurity risk management measures, basic cyber hygiene practices, and security training for everyone in the organization, and the technical specifics of cryptography.
And it goes even deeper, covering human resources, security, access control, comprehensive asset management, and the crucial, sometimes overlooked, area of environmental and physical security. It truly is a comprehensive framework.
It covers a lot of ground.
Now, a really important point to reiterate is the disclaimer included in the document itself. This guidance is advisory. Member states retain the freedom to determine their own supervision approach.
That's crucial.
It doesn't mean that every entity must provide every single piece of listed evidence. That would be an incredibly rigid approach.
No, it's guidance, not a strict checklist for every single item for every single entity.
However, it does provide invaluable support for national competent authorities as they develop their approach. And crucially, it aids entities in understanding how to effectively comply.
That's the key insight here. It's about bridging the gap. The guidance helps organizations connect the dots by showing them how to leverage existing standards they might already be using, like the widely recognized ISO 27001 or the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0.
So you don't have to start from scratch if you're already using those.
Exactly. It's designed to be technology neutral and standards neutral, offering flexible pathways to compliance rather than dictating a single solution. And as we embark on this journey into compliance and building robust cybersecurity measures, it's worth highlighting how partners like www.gdpriso.com can be incredibly helpful.
How so?
Well, they really help organizations navigate the complexities of data protection, like GDPR, and aligning with international standards, which is a core part of what this guidance touches on.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, moving into the foundational elements, let's talk about what the guidance refers to as the overarching policy. The Security of Network and Information Systems Policy, or NIS policy.
The big one.
This isn't just another document, it's the highest level framework, setting your entire organization's approach to cybersecurity. Its purpose, as detailed in Section 1.1.1 of the guidance, is quite expansive, laying the groundwork for everything else.
What's genuinely insightful here is that it demands the policies set out your entity's overall approach to managing security, ensuring it's not just a technical checklist, but something appropriate and truly complementary to your business strategy and objectives.
So, aligning security with the business goals.
Precisely. It requires defining clear security objectives and, crucially, demonstrating a tangible commitment to continual improvement and to providing the necessary resources that means adequate staff, financial backing, robust processes, effective tools, and the right technology.
So, real commitment, not just words.
This isn't just about having a document. It's about embedding cybersecurity into your organizational DNA, showcasing top-level commitment from management.
And it goes further, requiring clear communication and acknowledgement by all relevant employees and external parties. This means not just a policy sitting on a shelf, but signed documents or digital acknowledgements, often with adapted summaries tailored for different roles.
Tailored summaries, that's smart.
So whether you're in IT, HR, or finance, the information should be relevant, accessible, and easily understandable. It also mandates clear roles and responsibilities, specific documentation requirements, retention periods, and a list of all topic-specific policies that branch off from this overarching one.
And critically, it must include clear indicators and measures to monitor its implementation and assess the entity's maturity level over time. Plus, it needs a formal approval date by the management bodies.
So management sign-off is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This isn't a set-it-and-forget-it document. It's designed to be a living framework, continuously evaluated and refined. Section 1.1.2 mandates that this policy be reviewed and, where appropriate, updated at least annually.
Annually, okay.
And always when significant incidents or material changes to operations or risks occur.
So evidence of this continuous review, like documented comments, change logs, up-to-date versions of the policies, and formal approval records from management is absolutely crucial.
You need to show you're actually doing it.
Now, beyond this overarching NIS policy, the guidance also specifies 10 additional mandatory documented topic-specific policies. That seems like a lot.
It is, but they cover critical areas. These include essential documents like the risk management policy, incident handling policy, supply chain security policy, and your security testing policy. You also need a policy to assess the effectiveness of your cybersecurity risk management measures. And on the more technical side, policies related to cryptography, access control, the specific management of privileged accounts and system administration accounts, how you handle information and assets, and even a policy for removable media.
Removable media, still a thing. So 10 more policies. Does it specify how they have to be structured?
That's the good news. The guidance offers flexibility in format, which is a relief. These policies can be separate documents, updates integrated into existing ones, or even combined into a single comprehensive document.
Oh, okay.
The point is to ensure the substance is there, rather than dictating a rigid structure.
That makes it more manageable. Moving deeper, let's explore the risk management policy and framework comprehensively covered in Chapter 2.
Right, Chapter 2. Section 2.1.1 states that entities must establish a robust, structured approach to systematically identify, assess, manage, and mitigate cybersecurity risks.
A structured approach.
The good news is they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can leverage existing, recognized frameworks or adopt new ones suited to their needs. Think ISO 2705, NIST RMF.
Familiar frameworks.
Exactly. And this framework isn't just about identifying risks. It's intensely focused on treating them. The guidance heavily emphasizes a clear risk treatment plan.
Okay, what goes in that plan?
This plan should meticulously detail all identified risks, explain how they impact your security objectives, outline your chosen treatment options, whether that's avoidance, mitigation, transferring the risk, or formally accepting it, and list the associated assets, the specific measures taken, implementation timelines, and clearly assign responsible roles. It's designed to be a very practical, action-oriented blueprint.
Action-oriented, I like that.
A truly critical component, detailed in 2.1.2, is defining your risk appetite and tolerance.
Appetite and tolerance. What's the difference?
Good question. Think of risk appetite as the strategic amount of risk your entity is, at a high level, willing to accept. This is deeply influenced by your business objectives, stakeholder expectations, regulatory requirements, and even your organizational culture.
Like, how much risk are we willing to take overall to achieve our mission?
Exactly. For instance, a tech startup might have a higher risk appetite for adopting cutting-edge, unproven technologies compared to, say, a highly regulated financial institution.
Right. And tolerance.
Risk tolerance is the acceptable level of deviation you're willing to live with day to day, in pursuit of those objectives. The guidance provides excellent, tangible examples here, perhaps an acceptable downtime for critical systems of, say, 2 hours per month.
Okay, that's specific.
Or a tolerance for the loss of low criticality data within a 24-hour window, or a maximum financial loss of E or 100,000 for a specific type of incident. It's about setting concrete, measurable boundaries for what's acceptable. You might even strategically tolerate one major incident every few years if that's aligned with your overall risk profile and disaster recovery capabilities.
So specific, measurable limits.
It also outlines specific risk acceptance criteria. For example, accepting risks categorized as low severity or low likelihood, or those confined to test environments.
Sure.
Crucially, it allows for accepting certain vulnerabilities for a defined limited period while you actively plan for their remediation.
But not forever.
No. And the guidance makes it explicitly clear. Critical vulnerabilities, those classified as high severity, should not be accepted if there's any viable alternative.
That's a strong statement. Okay, so how do entities actually evaluate the significance of a risk?
The guidance on risk criteria in 2.1.2 provides a comprehensive framework for that. It includes assessing alignment with your defined risk appetite, for instance, evaluating if internal reporting delays truly impact customer service or are simply an internal inconvenience.
Right.
It considers regulatory and legal exposure. Think of the staggering fines and reputational damage from a GDPR violation. And naturally, the broader reputational impact, especially for incidents that might attract unwanted media attention.
Media attention is a big driver.
Absolutely. And it goes further, considering nuanced factors like risk velocity, how quickly a threat, like a zero-day exploit, can be weaponized and spread. It factors in recovery complexity, such as the unique challenges of responding to attacks on outdated legacy systems.
Legacy systems, always a headache.
Tell me about it. There's a nod to emerging technology risks, like the unpredictable nature of decisions made by complex AI systems. And finally, stakeholder sensitivity, referring at risks that might be flagged as particularly concerning by your board or regulators, even if they appear technically low level.
So a really broad view of risk factors.
Continuous monitoring and review is mandated in 2.1.4. This means your risk management framework must be actively reviewed and, where appropriate, updated at least annually, and always when significant changes or incidents occur.
Annually again and after incidents.
The factors driving this review are extensive. Results from recent audits, the current status of measure implementations, changes to your systems or operating environment, findings from post-incident reviews, and critically evolving threat and vulnerability trends.
So it's constantly being fed new information.
It has to be. Now let's dive a bit deeper into the 4 core risk treatment options. First, there's risk avoidance. This is the most straightforward. It means deliberately eliminating the activities or conditions that expose your entity to a specific risk.
Like just stopping doing something risky.
Exactly. A practical example would be discontinuing the use of a known vulnerable software application that poses too great a threat, or deciding not to offer a service that inherently carries unacceptable cyber risks.
Okay, avoidance. What's next?
Then we have risk mitigation, which is likely the most common and where most of the hands-on cybersecurity work happens. This involves implementing specific measures to reduce either the likelihood or the impact of a risk.
Putting up defenses?
Think of it like that. Installing robust firewalls, implementing strong encryption for sensitive data, or conducting regular comprehensive security training for your employees. It's about actively diminishing the threat.
Makes sense. Third option.
Sometimes, entities opt for risk transfer or sharing. This strategy involves shifting some of the financial or operational impact of a risk to another party. The most common examples are purchasing cyber insurance or outsourcing certain IT functions to a third-party provider.
Ah, like insurance.
Right. However, it's absolutely vital to remember that while the impact might be shared, the ultimate accountability and legal obligations for protecting your data or services nearly always remain with your organization. You can't just outsource the responsibility.
Good point. Accountability stays. And the last one.
And finally, there's risk acceptance. This is a conscious decision to acknowledge a risk and proceed without taking specific additional action to mitigate it, often because the perceived cost of mitigation outweighs the potential impact.
So you know the risk is there, but you decide to live with it.
Yes, but it isn't a passive shrug. It must be clearly documented, supported by a realistic estimation of potential costs, and ideally include financial provisions for potential fallout. But, as we've noted, the guidance is very clear. Critical vulnerabilities should not be accepted without exceptional, documented justification and a plan for eventual remediation.
document everything, especially acceptance.
Compliance monitoring, as articulated in 2.2, is crucial for ensuring that these high-level policies actually translate into day-to-day adherence. It requires regularly reviewing your organization's compliance with its own policies, internal rules, and relevant standards.
Checking that people are actually following the rules.
And critically, your management bodies must be kept informed of these monitoring results, ensuring accountability right at the top.
And Section 2.3 introduces the concept of independent reviews. Why independent?
These are absolutely crucial for maintaining impartiality and trust. They must be conducted by competent individuals who can be internal or external. But if they're internal, the reviewers must operate independently, outside the direct line of authority of the area or system under review.
So, no marking your own homework.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The results of these reviews are then reported directly to management, who are responsible for ensuring corrective actions are taken or formally accepting any residual risks. When you're building robust risk management frameworks, leveraging recognized standards like those from NIST is really key.
NIST comes up a lot.
It does, and that's why resources like www.cmmcnis.tools are so valuable. They offer tools and insights specifically for organizations aligning with NIST and other critical cybersecurity models, which can really streamline this whole process.
Good tip. Okay, so you've laid down the strong foundational policies and frameworks. But what happens when, despite your best efforts, an incident does occur?
The inevitable question.
That's where operational resilience truly kicks in. And it all starts with your incident handling policy, the focus of Chapter 3. Its core purpose, as stated in 3.1.1, is to clearly establish the roles, responsibilities, and precise procedures for detecting, analyzing, containing, responding to, recovering from, documenting, and ultimately reporting incidents in a timely manner.
What's particularly insightful here is the strong emphasis on coherence. As per 3.1.2, this incident handling policy isn't a standalone document. It must align seamlessly with your broader business continuity and disaster recovery plans.
So they all work together.
They have to. Key inclusions are a robust categorization system for incidents perhaps based on impact to operations, data sensitivity, or regulatory implications like GDPR, along with effective communication plans that cover escalation and reporting to internal teams, external authorities like CSIRTs, and even customers and suppliers. It also requires the clear assignment of roles to competent employees, ensuring a dedicated team for detection and response.
A dedicated team is important. And documentation.
Yes, it mandates detailed documentation. Think incident response manuals, clear escalation charts, comprehensive contact lists, and pre-designed templates for various reporting needs. This meticulous preparation ensures that when an incident hits, everyone knows their part, has the necessary tools ready, and can act swiftly and decisively.
Preparation is key. But how do you know the plan works?
Section 3.1.3 really underscores the importance of testing and continuous review. These incident handling roles, responsibilities, and procedures must be tested regularly, at least annually, and definitely, after any significant incidents or changes to your systems.
Annually again. How do you test?
The guidance suggests various methods. Tabletop exercises, which are great for simulating scenarios and discussing responses, full-blown attack simulations, perhaps with red team, blue team exercises, or even walking through past incidents to identify lessons learned.
So practical exercises, not just theory.
Exactly. It's not enough to just have a policy or a plan. You need to prove it works in practice and continuously refine it based on those test results, the ever-evolving threat landscape, new legal requirements, and any updates to your policies. It's a cycle of improvement.
A continuous loop.
And underpinning every effective incident handling strategy is robust monitoring and logging, detailed extensively in 3.2. Section 3.2.1 states that clear procedures and appropriate tools must be in place to monitor and log activities across your network and information systems.
Monitor and log everything.
Well, the goal is twofold: to effectively detect potential incidents and to facilitate rapid mitigation of their impact. The objectives for logging are incredibly comprehensive, creating a rich tapestry of data.
What kind of data?
This includes proactive threat detection, ensuring compliance with various regulations, providing crucial support for incident response, optimizing system performance, detecting anomalies that could signal a breach, monitoring for new vulnerability reports, even those affecting free and open source software or FOSS components.
FOSS too, right.
Preventing data loss, providing essential forensic support for investigations, and maintaining overall network health. It's about capturing everything that tells a story of what happened.
Automation is key here too, isn't it?
Definitely. Section 3.2.2 strongly suggests that monitoring should be automated wherever feasible, running continuously or periodically, with the aim of minimizing both false positives, those annoying alerts that are actually nothing, and false negatives, which means missing real threats.
False negatives are the scary ones.
They are. This can involve establishing baseline network traffic patterns, leveraging analytics and machine learning to spot deviations, and continuously updating your tools to adapt to new threats. The ultimate goal is to map your monitoring use cases directly to identified risks, ensuring no critical threat goes undetected.
And what about the actual content of those logs? What needs to be in there?
Section 3.2.3 provides a remarkably detailed list of what you should maintain, document, and review, all based on your risk assessment. This includes things like relevant outbound and inbound network traffic, any creation, modification, or deletion of user accounts, system and application access, all authentication-related events, and critically, all privileged access and administrative activities.
Privileged access is always key.
Always. Also, any access to or changes made to critical configuration of backup files, event logs from your security tools like antivirus software, intrusion detection systems, IDS, which watch for suspicious activity, and intrusion prevention systems, IPS, which can block it along with firewall logs.
So logs from all the security tools.
Yes. Plus, you need to capture system resource use and performance data, physical access to your facilities, and any access to network equipment. Even the activation, stopping, or pausing of logging and significant environmental events need to be accurately captured. It's about creating a complete forensic trail.
That's incredibly granular, but I guess you need that for a proper investigation. And Section 3.2.4 addresses alarm thresholds. What's that about?
Your logs must be regularly reviewed for unusual trends. Entities need to set appropriate, specific alarm thresholds. For example, a sudden spike in traffic volume exceeding 50% of your normal baseline on a specific port, or 3 or more account lockouts within 15 minutes, could trigger an alert.
So triggers for investigation.
Exactly. The guidance is clear. If these thresholds are exceeded, an alarm should trigger a timely and qualified response, meaning a human or an automated system needs to act.
And protecting these logs is paramount, right? As detailed in 3.2.5.
Absolutely. Entities must actively safeguard the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of all log data. This includes maintaining accurate time synchronization across all systems, integrating your log data with your asset inventory, and protecting logs against loss, perhaps through redundant storage across multiple geographically separate locations.
Time sync is often overlooked, but vital for correlation.
Crucial. It also specifically highlights the importance of ensuring personal data contained within logs is not processed unnecessarily, requiring additional protection measures after a data protection impact assessment, or DPIA. That's a process where you rigorously evaluate privacy risks before new systems or processes go live.
Okay, so logging is huge. Moving slightly beyond the purely technical, 3.3 focuses on event reporting.
Right. How do you actually hear about potential problems?
The guidance mandates a simple, accessible mechanism, 3.3.1, that allows everyone, employees, suppliers, and even customers to report suspicious events.
Everyone. That's interesting.
This mechanism needs to provide clear guidelines on what information should be included in a report, such as the date, time, a clear description, any available evidence, and contact information. This should also align with reporting requirements for national CSIRTs or other competent authorities.
And to make it truly accessible, entities should provide multiple channels for reporting, like a dedicated email address, a user-friendly web form, a direct phone line, or even a mobile app. This democratizes threat intelligence, allowing anyone who spots something amiss to contribute to the organization's security posture.
Tapping into the whole ecosystem for detection. Following reporting, there's event assessment and classification, covered in 3.4.
So what do you do with those reports?
Here, entities must systematically assess any suspicious events to determine if they truly constitute an incident and then classify their nature and severity, 3.4.1. This assessment should be based on predefined criteria, with a triage system in place for rapid prioritization, ensuring critical events are addressed first.
Triage makes sense.
Crucially, entities are required to assess the existence of recurring incidents on a quarterly basis.
Quarterly review for patterns.
This helps identify deeper systemic issues that might otherwise go unnoticed. The assessment process also includes a thorough review of appropriate logs, implementing robust log correlation and analysis processes, and reassessing events if new information comes to light. The guidance even suggests implementing detailed playbooks for common incident types, like ransomware attacks or sophisticated phishing attempts, ensuring a consistent and effective response.
Playbooks are essential for consistency under pressure.
Then comes the heart of the matter, incident response in 3.5. Entities must respond to incidents swiftly and in full accordance with their documented procedures, 3.5.1. This often means establishing a dedicated incident response team composed of individuals with the necessary technical expertise and clear authority to act.
Authority is key there.
This raises an important, often tricky question. What happens when objectives conflict during an incident? Section 3.5.2 directly addresses the trade-offs that can arise between forensic activities preserving evidence for later analysis, the immediate incident response actions, such as mitigating and removing threats, and the critical need for operational continuity, minimizing disruption to services.
The classic response dilemma. Forensics versus fixing versus keeping the lights on.
Exactly. It emphasizes clear decision-making based on your organization's risk tolerance, the immediate business impact, and legal obligations, with the rationale for those decisions being thoroughly documented. Playbooks, again, are suggested for managing these complex trade-offs.
Documenting the why behind those trade-offs is vital.
Communication plans 3.5.3 are absolutely vital here, not just internally to your teams, but externally to national CSIRTs and competent authorities for mandatory notifications, and to other external stakeholders like customers, suppliers, and even free and open source software project contacts if their components were involved in the incident.
Communicating with FOSS projects, that's good practice.
And robust logging continues to be critical throughout the response phase, 3.5.4. Entities must meticulously log all incident response activities and record every piece of evidence.
The evidence trail.
This includes precise timestamps for detection, containment, and recovery, any indicators of compromise or IOCs found, the determined root cause of the incident, all actions taken, a thorough impact assessment, all communications made, and the lessons learned from the entire experience, including any CSIRT notifications.
A complete incident record.
And to ensure readiness, regular testing of these response procedures 3.5.5 through tabletop exercises or full simulations is also mandatory.
Test.
After the immediate crisis is contained and recovery is underway, post-incident reviews 3.6 become essential. The primary purpose, 3.6.1, is to identify the root cause of the incident wherever possible and meticulously document all lessons learned.
Learning from mistakes or near misses.
The ultimate goal is to reduce both the likelihood and the consequences of future similar occurrences. This involves a thorough root cause analysis, identifying all contributing factors, and developing actionable recommendations with clear ownership assigned to individuals or teams.
Assigning owners is crucial for follow-through.
Sharing these findings with affected stakeholders, including suppliers and maintainers of any FOSS components involved, is strongly encouraged. Critically, the findings from these reviews should systematically update your risk assessment results and your treatment plans, 3.6.2. These reviews should happen at planned intervals or promptly after any significant incidents.
Closing the loop back to risk management.
Shifting gears slightly, but staying firmly within operational resilience, we arrive at business continuity and crisis management in Chapter 4. Section 4.1.1 states that entities must establish and rigorously maintain a business continuity plan, or BCP, and a disaster recovery plan, or DRP.
BCP and DRP, essential stuff.
This planning should ideally consider recognized industry standards like ISO 27301 or NIST Special Publication 834.
Building on existing standards again.
This includes anticipating and listing various potential disruptions, from natural disasters to other significant occurrences that could affect your services, along with detailing your disaster recovery capabilities. This means clear strategies for backups, plans for testing those backups, and well-defined recovery objectives.
Knowing your RTOs and RPOs.
Exactly. The plan for restoration of operations, 4.1.2, must be rooted in the results of your risk assessment. It should be incredibly detailed, encompassing the plan's purpose and scope, clear roles and responsibilities, key contact information, specific communication channels, and precise activation and deactivation conditions.
Who does what, when, and how?
Crucially, it needs to outline the order of recovery based on asset classification, service importance, and interdependencies. It must detail recovery plans for specific operations, list all required resources, like redundant systems or offsite backups, and describe how to resume activities from temporary measures.
Prioritizing recovery.
Capacity planning is also a vital consideration here, as is ensuring you have primary and alternate telecommunications solutions. For the modern remote workforce, plans should also explicitly address things like backup internet solutions and regularly tested VPN access.
Remote work adds complexity. The plan also needs to identify specific measures for recovery and restoration, such as establishing failover sites in different geographical regions, maintaining remote backups of all critical data, and implementing regularly tested restore procedures.
A truly core component of this comprehensive planning is the Business Impact Analysis, or BIA, as per 4.1.3. What's involved there?
This is where you systematically assess the potential impact of severe disruptions on your organization. Based on the BIA's results, you then establish your continuity requirements.
So the BIA drives the requirements.
Precisely. This is where you define your recovery time objectives, or RTOs, the maximum acceptable downtime for a critical service, your recovery point objectives, or RPOs, the maximum acceptable amount of data loss, and your service delivery objectives, or SDOs, the minimum acceptable performance level during a disruption. These objectives directly inform your backup and redundancy procedures, ensuring they're fit for purpose.
RTO, RPO, SDO. Got it. And testing.
Testing and review of your BCP and DRP 4.1.4 is not optional. It's mandatory and must be regular. This includes employing methods like creating digital twins of your systems for testing, running simulations, and conducting tabletop exercises.
More testing.
The guidance also highlights the importance of testing at alternate sites and rigorously testing your data center infrastructure for availability, automatic failover, power failover, and overall resilience. Your plans must be updated based on test findings and lessons learned, and critically, you need to review any dependent third-party plans to ensure they meet your continuity requirements.
Check your suppliers' plans, too.
Essential. And finally, within this section, we have the Crisis Management Process, 4.3. Entities need to establish this robust process, ideally considering international industry standards like ISO 22361.
What makes something a crisis versus just an incident?
Good question. A key part of this is defining very clear criteria for when a crisis is officially declared. These criteria can be quite specific, ranging from a significant risk to critical assets, a major business disruption, or the broadness of an incident's impact.
So it's about scale and severity.
Right. They can also include potential reputational damage, the impact on data confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, or availability, the sophistication of the threat actors involved, and the potential for the situation to escalate.
Okay. And the process itself.
The crisis management process must clearly define roles and responsibilities, even for your suppliers. It needs to establish appropriate communication means, with authorities distinguishing between obligatory and non-obligatory communications and detail measures to maintain security throughout a crisis.
Communication with authorities is key.
And Section 4.3.3 requires entities to implement a clear process for managing and utilizing information received from national CERTs or other competent authorities. This information could relate to incidents, vulnerabilities, threats, or mitigation measures.
Using external threat intel.
Exactly. This involves designating a specific point of contact, efficiently classifying and prioritizing the incoming information, validating it against your internal logs, developing appropriate mitigation strategies, and consistently updating your incident response plans based on these insights. Achieving robust operational resilience truly requires comprehensive planning and strict adherence to best practices.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is. And this is precisely where resources like baseline.compliancehub.wiki can provide invaluable insights. They offer practical guidance and frameworks to help ensure your operation stays secure and resilient against these kinds of disruptions.
Useful resource. Okay, let's pivot now into the world of security by design, starting with supply chain security. Chapter 5 makes it clear. Relevant entities must establish and rigorously implement a comprehensive supply chain security policy, 5.1.1.
This is a really hot topic, supply chain security.
Definitely. What's absolutely crucial here is that this policy needs to lay down very specific criteria for how you select and contract with your suppliers and service providers, 5.1.2.
Beyond just cost.
Far beyond. It delves deep into their cybersecurity practices, including their secure development procedures and their demonstrated ability to meet your organization's cybersecurity specifications. It also requires you to assess the overall quality and resilience of their ICT products and services, including any embedded cybersecurity risk management measures.
Assessing their resilience, okay.
And a really important strategic consideration is your ability to diversify sources and limit vendor lock-in, ensuring you're not overly dependent on a single provider. which could become a single point of failure.
Avoiding putting all eggs in one basket.
The guidance offers extensive additional considerations for supplier selection, which I find incredibly practical. For instance, considering the legal jurisdiction of the supplier, are they already regulated under NIS2? Their explicit compliance statements, their corporate ownership structure, and their proven ability to ensure continuous supply are all factors.
Due diligence on suppliers.
It also emphasizes whether they prioritize cybersecurity, evidenced by industry standard certifications or reports from vendor risk management software. It also suggests looking at notices or advice issued by national authorities regarding supplier selection, the inherent sensitivity of the products or services they provide, and critically, the supplier's past history of cyber events or breaches.
Their track record matters.
For 5.1.3, entities are reminded to factor in the results of any coordinated security risk assessments of critical supply chains, or applicable as outlined in Article 22.1 of the NIS2 Directive.
Using those EU-level assessments.
Contractual requirements are absolutely paramount in this context, as detailed in 5.1.4. Your contracts with suppliers and service providers must explicitly specify cybersecurity requirements, often integrated via robust service-level agreements or SLAs.
Put it in the contract.
These requirements should encompass secure acquisition practices for their ICT services or products, mandating awareness and training for their personnel, and, crucially, audit rights for you to verify their compliance. They also need to include clauses for security testing.
Audit rights are key for verification.
And these contracts must detail their incident reporting, response, and communication protocols, including clear timelines and formats. They need to commit to supporting your incident handling and post-incident reviews, adhere to specific subcontracting requirements, and define clear obligations at contract termination, such as the secure retrieval and disposal of your information.
Covering the whole life cycle of the relationship.
Section 5.1.5 makes it clear that these detailed criteria are not just suggestions. They must be an integral part of your selection process for any new suppliers and for all procurement activities. You need to perform a thorough risk analysis before entering into any agreement with suppliers.
Risk assessment before signing.
And monitoring this isn't a one-and-done task. Entities must continuously review their supply chain security policy and actively monitor, evaluate, and act upon any changes in their suppliers' cybersecurity practices at planned intervals, and particularly when significant incidents or changes occur. 5.1.6.
Ongoing monitoring.
Section 5.1.7 further specifies this vigilance. Regularly monitor SLA implementation reports, meticulously review any supplier-related incidents, and be prepared to assess the need for unscheduled reviews. These could be triggered by material changes in the supplier's operations, an increase in your risk exposure, failures in contractual obligations, or the emergence of new threats.
Stay vigilant.
You also need to proactively analyze risk from changes in the ICT products and services you consume and take timely mitigating measures, alongside tracking any security incidents related to or directly caused by third parties.
What's particularly insightful here is the guidance on open source software, or FOSS, consideration.
Yes, FOSS is everywhere. What does it say?
It clarifies that if your relationship with FOSS is purely based on license adherence, without a direct contractual agreement, then no obligations beyond that license can be imposed. However, it strongly encourages supporting FOSS communities and projects to foster mutually beneficial relationships, perhaps by engaging with open-source software stewards who manage these projects.
So engage with the community.
This raises an important question. How do you practically mitigate risks from FOSS dependencies, which are so pervasive today? The guidance offers practical advice, requiring supplier risk assessments before integrating FOSS components into your systems, seeking evidence of the supplier's active engagement with the FOSS community, perhaps through funding or direct code contributions.
Show they're involved.
Ensuring you receive regular updates, and demanding evidence of code reviews or security testing by the supplier themselves. It also recommends requiring detailed information on dependency management tools and clear documentation and policies for FOSS use within your organization. And, naturally, actively engaging directly with relevant open-source communities for updates, patches, and best practices.
So treat FOSS dependencies seriously.
Very seriously. Moving to Chapter 6, which delves into security and acquisition of ICT services or ICT products. Here, entities must establish and implement robust processes to manage risks associated with the acquisition of critical ICT services or products throughout their entire lifecycle. 6.1.1.
Lifecycle management for acquisitions.
This approach must be rooted in your risk assessment. What this really means is that cybersecurity needs to be a permanent, integral component of your entire purchasing process, right from the initial consideration, even when acquiring FOSS.
Security from the start of procurement.
These processes must include specific security requirements for any acquired products or services, such as their ability to detect, monitor, and protect against unauthorized changes. They also need to mandate requirements for security updates throughout the product's entire lifetime, or a clear plan for replacement if it reaches end of support.
Lifetime updates, that's a big ask sometimes.
It is, but it's crucial. And a key requirement is demanding comprehensive information describing all hardware and software components, including software bill of materials, or SBOMs, essentially a complete ingredients list for your software so you know exactly what's inside.
SBOMs are becoming standard practice.
They are. It also strongly suggests evaluating security before acquisition. This can involve conducting your own penetration testing, checking for existing security tools like firewalls, IDS, IPS, and specific mechanisms like multi-factor authentication or MFA. You should also verify compliance with cybersecurity standards and check for assurance levels or certifications.
Test before you buy.
These secure acquisition processes must be reviewed and updated at least annually, 6.1.3, especially after significant incidents, and should align seamlessly with your overall supply chain policy. Entities should also share any internal assessment results for SOSS components with the broader community where appropriate.
Okay. Next is the Secure Development Lifecycle, or SSDLC, as outlined in 6.2.1.
Building secure software.
Before developing any network or information system, including software, entities must lay down and consistently apply clear rules for secure development. This applies whether the development is in-house or outsourced, and it must cover all phases of the lifecycle, from initial specification and design, through development and implementation, all the way to rigorous testing.
All phases, in-house or outsourced.
And these rules must incorporate specific principles detailed in 6.2.2. This means conducting thorough security requirements analysis right from the specification and design phases, applying fundamental principles for engineering secure systems, and secure coding concepts like cybersecurity by design.
Build it in, don't bolt it on.
Where security is integrated from day one, and zero trust architectures, which assume no inherent trust within your network. It also requires establishing clear security requirements for your development environments themselves.
Secure the dev environment, too.
It also mandates establishing and implementing robust security testing processes within the development lifecycle. And for test data, it must be appropriately selected, meticulously protected, carefully managed, thoroughly sanitized, and rigorously anonymized.
Handle test data carefully.
The guidance suggests techniques like data masking, complete deletion, or one-way anonymization. For FOSS components, entities are encouraged to assist those projects in adopting secure practices, always consistent with their voluntary nature.
Helping the FOSS community improve security.
For outsourced development, 6.2.3, you must diligently apply your existing supply chain and acquisition policies. This means clearly communicating your internal secure development rules to your external partners and holding regular cross-organizational meetings to ensure alignment. These secure development rules themselves must be reviewed and updated at least every 2 years, 6.2.4, to keep pace with evolving threats and best practices.
2-year review cycle for SSDLC rules.
Some practical tips for a robust SSDLC include integrating threat modeling. That's where you proactively identify potential security threats and vulnerabilities in your system before you even build it.
Think like an attacker.
Like thinking like a hacker before they do. It also suggests maintaining separate environments for development, testing, and production, and integrating the results of application security assessments directly into developer training. Using automated tools for tracking third-party libraries and integrating root cause analysis findings back into your SSDLC process changes are also highly recommended.
Practical tips for developers.
Continuing with building security in, 6.3 covers secure configurations. Entities must establish thoroughly documented processes based on recognized best practices and industry standards for the secure configuration of all hardware, software, services, and networks. 6.3.1.
Secure baseline configurations.
This means maintaining incredibly detailed settings for all your operating procedures, from how you process data and perform backups, to scheduling, error handling, system restarts, cryptography, and maintaining comprehensive audit trails. It also means defining precise security parameters for things like registry settings, account and file directory permissions, network functions, ports, protocols, services, and remote connections.
Getting into the weeds of settings.
The guidance also encourages automated mechanisms for managing and verifying these configurations, reducing human error. It also requires establishing secure baseline configurations, particularly for development and test environments, ensuring they are distinctly separate from your operational production environments. Any deviations from these baselines must be thoroughly documented and formally approved.
Document any deviations.
Your processes and tools must then actively enforce these secure configurations for both new and existing systems. 6.3.2. This involves rigorously applying hardening guides, essentially making systems more resistant to attack and adhering to general cybersecurity principles like least functionality.
Only do what's necessary.
Meaning systems only perform what's absolutely necessary, and least privilege, giving users only the access they need. These configurations must be reviewed and updated regularly, 6.3.3, especially after any major changes or security incident.
Regular reviews of configurations.
Then there's change management in 6.4. Entities must establish and implement clear procedures for any changes made to network and information systems, 6.4.1. These procedures should be fully consistent with your organization's broader general change management policies.
Controlling changes carefully.
These procedures should cover every aspect of a change, from the initial request for change through a thorough risk assessment, categorization, and prioritization, including necessary tests and approvals, to defining clear rollback requirements in case something goes wrong, and comprehensive documentation and final approval.
The full change lifecycle.
The guidance even allows for different workflows tailored to the criticality and urgency of a change, such as a fast-tracked emergency intervention workflow for critical situations.
Emergency change process, too.
These procedures apply to all releases, modifications, and emergency changes of any software and hardware in operation, as well as changes to configurations. 6.4.2. They must ensure that all changes are meticulously documented, thoroughly tested, and assessed for their potential impact before they are implemented. A mandatory integrity check before any new software deployment is also mentioned.
Test before deploying changes.
And critically, all changes should be authenticated, authorized, and non-repudiating, meaning you can always trace who did what.
Accountability for changes.
For emergency changes where regular procedures couldn't be fully followed, entities must thoroughly document the outcome and provide a clear explanation for any deviation from the standard process, 6.4.3. These change management procedures themselves must be reviewed and updated at planned intervals, or when significant incidents or changes occur, 6.4.4, ensuring they remain effective and adaptive.
Review the change process itself.
Security testing, 6.5, is next. Entities must establish, implement, and rigorously apply a policy and associated procedures for security testing, 6.5.1, based on recognized industry standards. The testing program itself should be meticulously tailored to the entity's size, complexity, and security maturity.
Tailored testing programs.
The necessity, scope, frequency, and specific type of test must be determined based on your organization's risk assessment. Testing should follow a documented methodology comprehensively covering all relevant components and ideally incorporate continuous testing within modern continuous integration, continuous delivery, or CI/CD environments.
Testing based on risks. CI/CD integration is smart.
The guidance lists a wide range of test types to consider. Standard vulnerability assessments, more in-depth penetration testing, thorough code reviews, engaging ethical hacking services, setting up bug bounty programs, running sophisticated cyber attack simulations, utilizing red teaming exercises.
Lots of testing options. Red teaming.
Performing protocol conformance testing and conducting comprehensive cyber response exercises. Test results, including a clear criticality assessment and details of mitigating actions, must be rigorously documented. Critically, mitigating actions must be applied for all critical findings.
Act on critical findings.
And if testing reveals an issue in FOSS, those findings and any developed patches should ideally be shared back with the relevant open source project.
Share back FOSS findings. Good citizenship.
Finally, for this section, Security Patch Management 6.6. Entities must specify and rigorously apply procedures that are fully coherent with their broader change management, vulnerability management, and risk management frameworks, 6.6.1.
Patching. Always critical.
Key principles here are that security patches must be applied within a reasonable time frame, rigorously tested before being deployed in production systems, and sourced only from trusted origins, with integrity checks verified via digital certificates, signatures, or change logs.
Timely, tested,
Trusted patches.
If a critical patch isn't available or cannot be applied immediately, additional compensating measures must be implemented and any remaining residual risks thoroughly documented and formally accepted.
Compensated controls if you can't patch.
Section 6.6.2 allows for something called derogation, meaning entities may choose not to apply certain security patches if the disadvantages of applying them clearly outweigh the cybersecurity benefits.
That sounds rich.
It is a very high bar, and such decisions must be duly documented and meticulously substantiated with clear reasoning. In such cases, alternative measures like strict system hardening, deploying intrusion detection systems, continuous scanning, network segmentation, enhanced access control, or active monitoring must be considered to address the unpatched vulnerability.
So you need strong justification and alternatives if you skip a patch.
Tips for effective patch management include making patching mandatory for all internet-exposed systems, prioritizing patches based on risk and criticality, and leveraging modern vulnerability management technologies. The guidance also details advanced patch application strategies like blue-green deployments,
Smart deployment strategies.
rolling deployments, using feature toggles to control new functionality, shadow deployments for testing in parallel, and hotfix deployments for critical, immediate issues. It also highlights the importance of trial runs with release candidates for major dependencies, especially FOSS, to identify incompatibilities early and provide feedback to open source projects.
Test FOSS updates too.
A comprehensive rollback plan is absolutely essential to revert changes if problems arise. And, importantly, any unsupported hardware or software should be removed from your systems in a reasonable time frame. Finally, patch and update requirements must be explicitly included in your supply chain policies and all contracts with suppliers.
Unsupported stuff needs to go. Patching in contracts. Makes sense. Ensuring your network security measures are up to international standards, including strong data protection protocols like those required by GDPR, is paramount. And honestly, aligning all these technical measures with regulations can be complex.
It really can.
That's another area where specialized help, like from www.gdprizo.com, can be really beneficial. They focus specifically on that intersection of technical security, international standards, and data protection compliance.
Good resource for that specific challenge. Okay, moving beyond the code and systems, let's delve into a critical, often human-centric area, human resources security, covered in Chapter 10.
The people part of security.
The core idea, 10.1.1, is ensuring that all employees and any direct suppliers or service providers fully understand and genuinely commit to their security responsibilities, with those responsibilities being appropriate to their specific role or the services they provide.
Understanding their role in security.
This translates into practical steps like providing role-specific training, conducting periodic assessments to ensure understanding, formally documenting security responsibilities within job descriptions and contracts, and requiring formal acknowledgement that personnel have read and understood these policies. A centralized repository of training records and certifications is also crucial for demonstrating compliance and facilitating audits.
Training, acknowledgement, records.
Section 10.1.2 lists key mechanisms to achieve this, ensuring all personnel understand and diligently follow standard cyber hygiene practices, which we'll cover more deeply later. It emphasizes making sure users with administrative or privileged access are not only aware of, but actively operate within their heightened roles and responsibilities.
Extra awareness for privileged users.
And crucially, it stresses that management bodies themselves must fully understand their own security roles and responsibilities, leading by example.
Tone from the top.
It also highlights mechanisms for hiring truly qualified personnel, which includes rigorous reference checks, thorough vetting procedures, diligent validation of certifications, and even written tests to assess their cybersecurity knowledge. This approach helps to build security into the organization from the very ground up, starting with the people you bring on board.
Secure hiring practices.
And it's not just at the start. The assignment of personnel to specific roles, along with their commitment of human resources to security, must be reviewed at least annually, 10.1.3, and updated as necessary. This ensures that security responsibilities evolve and keep pace with any organizational changes or shifting threat landscapes.
Annual review of roles and responsibilities.
Background verification, outlined in 10.2, is also a key component. Entities must, to the extent feasible and necessary for their role, verify the background of both employees and direct suppliers, especially considering their responsibilities and authorizations.
And background checks where needed.
Section 10.2.2 requires establishing clear criteria for which roles specifically require background verification. For instance, executives, roles with access to highly sensitive information, those with financial or procurement responsibilities, or individuals with physical access to critical assets.
Define roles needing checks.
This verification must ideally occur before they even start in these roles, taking into account all applicable laws, ethical considerations, business requirements, asset classification, and perceived risks. Periodically repeating verification is also strongly suggested.
Check before they start, and maybe periodically.
Post-employment security 10.3 is often an overlooked but critically important area. Entities must ensure that ongoing security responsibilities and duties, even after employment ends or roles change within the organization, are clearly contractually defined and enforceable. 10.3.1.
Security after they leave. Yeah.
This includes enforcing strict confidentiality clauses, ensuring the timely return of company property, and implementing clear restrictions on accessing systems once an individual has left or changed roles. All access, both logical and physical, must be revoked in a timely manner. 10.3.2.
Revoke access promptly. Return property.
Practical tips here include identifying and formally transferring security roles, conducting thorough exit interviews, meticulously collecting all company property, and actively monitoring for any unauthorized access attempts by former employees. These policies, of course, must be regularly reviewed and updated to remain effective.
Monitor for ex-employee access attempts.
Interesting. Finally, a robust disciplinary process, 10.4, for policy violations must be established, clearly communicated to everyone, and consistently maintained, 10.4.1. This process must diligently consider all legal, statutory, contractual, and business requirements, and crucially involve your human resources department.
HR involvement is key.
It needs to be reviewed at planned intervals, or whenever changes or incidents occur, 10.4.2. Tips for this disciplinary process include integrating it seamlessly into your organization's overall disciplinary framework. Immediate action for deliberate violations is often necessary, but it's always important to verify violations thoroughly before taking action.
Verify before acting.
Factors to consider when determining disciplinary action include the nature and gravity of the violation, whether it was intentional, and whether it's a first or repeated offense. The goal here isn't just punishment. A well-structured disciplinary process can also serve as a deterrent and, conversely, reinforce and reward good security behavior.
Fair and consistent process.
Next up, let's explore access control, the focus of Chapter 11. Section 11.1.1 states that entities must establish, document, and implement both logical and physical access control policies for their network and information systems. These policies need to be meticulously crafted based on your specific business and security requirements.
Logical and physical access control policies.
These policies must comprehensively cover access by all persons, your staff, visitors, external entities, and also address access by network and information system processes, 11.1.2. A fundamental principle is ensuring that access is only granted to adequately authenticated users.
Authenticate everyone and everything.
The policy should clearly define access control rules. Whether you're using mandatory access control, MAC, discretionary access control, DAC, role-based access control, RBAC, or attribute-based access control, ABAC, and unambiguously define who is responsible for what.
Define the rules clearly.
And of course, these policies are not static documents. They need to be rigorously reviewed and updated at least annually or promptly when significant incidents or changes occur, 11.1.3. A core insight for access control is adhering to the principles of need to know and least privilege, meaning users only have access to the information and systems that are strictly necessary for them to perform their role.
Need to know and least privilege. Classics for a reason.
Managing access rights, 11.2, involves having specific documented procedures for provisioning, modifying, removing, and logging all access rights. 11.2.1, in strict accordance with your access control policy.
Procedures for the access lifecycle.
Section 11.2.2 details the core principles for managing access rights. They must be assigned and revoked based on the need-to-know principle, the least privilege principle, and the concept of separation of duties. Access rights must be modified promptly upon termination or any change in employment. All access must be formally authorized by the relevant persons.
Authorization, separation of duties.
Third-party access, such as for visitors or external suppliers, must be carefully managed, typically by limiting access rights in both scope and duration. A comprehensive register of all granted access rights must be maintained, and meticulous logging must be applied to all aspects of access rights management.
Register of rights and logging.
These access rights themselves must be reviewed at planned intervals at least annually for privileged accounts and modified promptly based on any organizational changes, 11.2.3. Tips here include centralizing access control, perhaps through a directory service or a single sign-on or SSO provider. It also suggests implementing a segregation of duties matrix, ideally one that can be dynamically updated.
Centralized control, review rights regularly, especially privileged ones.
Privileged accounts and system administration accounts, 11.3, demand exceptional attention. Entities must maintain specific policies for their management, 11.3.1, including a clear inventory of all such accounts, a stringent authorization process for their use, and comprehensive logging of all activity.
Separate policies for privileged access.
These policies, 11.3.2, must establish strong identification, robust authentication like multi-factor authentication, or MFA, and stringent authorization procedures for privileged access. They also need to mandate that specific accounts are used exclusively for system administration operations, ensuring a clear separation of duties for administrators. These policies, too, should be reviewed annually.
Strong off, separate admin accounts, annual review.
Administration systems themselves, 11.4, must be strictly controlled. Their use must be restricted to administrative purposes only, 11.4.1, and all activity on them must be meticulously logged and regularly reviewed for any anomalies.
Restrict use of admin systems. Log everything.
These systems must be logically separated from non-administrative application software, and access to them must be rigorously protected through strong authentication and encryption, 11.4.2. Tips here include using a centralized privilege access management or PM solution, considering a cloud access security broker or CASB for cloud environments, and regularly auditing all system logs for suspicious activity.
Separate and protect admin systems. PM solutions help.
Identification 11.5 is a fundamental pillar of access control. Entities must manage the full life cycle of identities for both their network and information systems and their users, 11.5.1, maintaining a complete and accurate inventory of all user, privileged, and service identities.
Identity lifecycle management. Inventory identities.
Section 11.5.2 specifies establishing unique identities linked to a single individual, ensuring rigorous oversight of all identities, and applying comprehensive logging to all identity management activities. The process for provisioning or revoking access should be a multi-step procedure involving clear business requirement confirmation and robust identity verification.
Unique identities, multi-step provisioning.
Shared identities are generally discouraged and are only permitted if absolutely necessary for business or operational reasons, and then only subject to explicit approval and meticulous documentation. 11.5.3.
Avoid shared accounts if possible.
If used, they require significantly enhanced controls like mandatory MFA enforcement, strict least privilege access, time-bound access, session logging, and mandatory specialized training. These shared identity practices must also be fully integrated into your overall cybersecurity risk management framework.
Strong controls if shared accounts are unavoidable.
Identities must be regularly reviewed and, if no longer needed, deactivated without any delay. 11.5.4. This includes disabling dormant identities after a predefined period of inactivity. Tips include centralizing your identity management system and defining different levels of identification based on an individual's role or their need for access.
Review identities, disable inactive ones.
Authentication, 11.6, is paramount for securing access. Entities must implement secure authentication procedures and technologies based on their defined access restrictions and access control policy. 11.6.1.
How do you prove who you are?
This includes leveraging a range of technologies, from familiar password-based logins and passkeys to stronger options like two-factor authentication, 2FA, multi-factor authentication, MFA, biometrics, token-based systems, smart cards, FreeDO2, which uses physical security keys or biometric authenticators for highly secure, phishing-resistant login certificates, single sign-on, SSO, and OpenID Connect.
Lots of authentication tech. FreeDO2 is strong.
The strength of the authentication method must be appropriate to the classification and sensitivity of the asset being accessed, 11.6.2. Unique authentication credentials are required for each user. The process for allocating and managing secret authentication information must ensure that temporary passwords are non-guessable, new credentials require robust identity verification, and all credentials are transmitted and stored securely.
Match auth strength to asset sensitivity. Secure credential management.
For password management, systems should allow user selection, enforce strong passwords, emphasizing length over complexity rather than just character types, Force password changes upon first login, prevent the use of common or compromised passwords, never display passwords on screen, and ensure they are stored and transmitted securely.
Good password practices. Length over complexity is key now.
Phishing-resistant MFA is strongly recommended, and the guidance even provides a hierarchy of solutions. Strongest options involve no shared secrets and protected cryptographic private keys. Medium-strength methods include push notifications, number matching, or app-based authenticators. And as a last resort, less secure options like SMS or email one-time passwords, OTPs.
Hierarchy of MFA. Avoid SMCML OTP if possible.
The system should also generate alerts for any potential login breaches. The guidance also briefly mentions continuous authentication, which dynamically assesses risk factors throughout a user session, adapting security based on real-time behavior and context.
Continuous authentication is interesting, more dynamic.
All authentication procedures and technologies must be regularly reviewed, 11.6.4, to ensure they remain current and effective against emerging threats.
Review auth methods regularly.
Multi-factor authentication, MFA 11.7, is given its own specific section, underscoring its importance. Entities must ensure users are authenticated by MFA or continuous authentication for accessing network and information systems where appropriate, based on asset classification, 11.7.1.
MFA gets its own section. It's that important.
The strength of the MFA implementation must be appropriate for the asset classification, 11.7.2. Phishing-resistant MFA solutions should be prioritized wherever possible. Organizations need to clearly determine where MFA is critically needed. Think critical systems, remote access points, administrative systems, or systems holding sensitive information, and enforce it rigorously on all internet-facing systems.
Prioritize phishing-resistant MFA where it matters most.
They also need to clearly define when and how MFA is required for different access scenarios. Navigating intricate access controls, identity management, and ensuring compliance with standards like NIST can feel overwhelming, can't it?
It really can. The level of detail required is significant.
That's precisely why resources focusing on specific frameworks, like www.cmmcnis.tools, can be so helpful again. They provide dedicated tools and insights that really simplify aligning with complex models like the NIST cybersecurity framework, which underpins a lot of this guidance.
Yeah, having framework-specific help is invaluable.
Continuing our deep dive, Chapter 12 is all about asset management. Section 12.1.1 states that entities must lay down clear classification levels for all assets, and that includes not just information, but also personnel, processes, software, and hardware based on the level of protection each asset requires.
Classify everything, not just data.
These classification levels, 12.1.2, should consider crucial business needs, such as whether information should be shared or restricted, the importance of maintaining its integrity and authenticity, and ensuring its availability. They also must factor in legal compliance requirements related to confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
CIA triad, business needs, legal needs.
The guidance suggests defining specific classifications for sensitive information, like public, internal, or confidential, and ensuring these classifications align seamlessly with your access control policy. All assets, including non-information assets, should be classified based on the type and sensitivity of the information they store or handle.
Link classification to access control.
These classification levels must be reviewed periodically, at least annually, and updated to reflect any regulatory changes or shifts in the value, sensitivity, and criticality of assets throughout their life cycle. 12.1.3. A practical tip here is assigning asset owners the responsibility for classification and ensuring all personnel are aware of classification levels and their corresponding protection requirements.
Annual review, assign owners.
Then there's the handling of assets, 12.2. Entities must establish, implement, and rigorously apply a policy for the proper handling of all assets, 12.2.1, and this policy must be clearly communicated to both internal personnel and any third parties involved.
Policy for handling assets.
This policy, 12.2.2, must cover the entire life cycle of assets from their initial acquisition through their active use, secure storage, safe transportation, and ultimately their irretrievable deletion and destruction.
Full life cycle handling.
It should provide detailed instructions for the safe use, secure storage, and secure transport of assets, and specify methods for their irretrievable deletion or destruction. Secure transfer methods are also required. This policy covers assets both on-premises and off-premises, including mobile devices, cloud data, transient data, and sensitive information.
Covers mobile, cloud, everything.
It also explicitly requires approval for transferring assets to external premises, and it must directly link to your asset classification system, providing specific handling details for each level. The policy must be reviewed and updated at least annually. 12.2.3.
Link handling to classification. Annual review.
Removable media, 12.3, also has its own specific policy, 12.3.1. This policy must include technical prohibitions against connecting removable media to your systems unless there is a clear, documented organizational reason for its use.
USB drives, etc., block by default.
Seems like it, unless justified. It also requires disabling any self-execution features from such media and mandating a scan for malicious code before use, 12.3.2. Measures for controlling and protecting portable storage devices in transit and storage are necessary, and cryptographic techniques, like strong encryption, should be used where appropriate to protect the data on them.
Scan before use encrypt data.
This policy, too, must be reviewed and updated at planned intervals, or when significant incidents or changes occur, 12.3.3.
An asset inventory, 12.4, is absolutely crucial for effective security. Entities must develop and continuously maintain a complete, accurate, up-to-date, and consistent inventory of all their assets. 12.4.1.
Know what you have.
The granularity of this inventory must be appropriate for your entity's specific needs. 12.4.2. It should include comprehensive lists of your operations and services, all network and information systems, and any other associated supporting assets.
What details should be in the inventory?
Practical tips for the inventory include adding details like a unique ID for each asset, its type, owner, operational unit, physical location, last update or patch date, security classification, information type, end-of-life date, in relation to other assets, and any specific logging requirements. Automated discovery and tracking tools are highly recommended for managing such a dynamic inventory.
Automation helps keep it accurate.
Finally, for asset management, the deposit, return, or deletion of assets upon termination of employment, 12.5, is critical. Entities must establish clear procedures to ensure that any assets under the custody of personnel are properly deposited, returned, or securely deleted upon their termination of employment or change of role. These actions must be meticulously documented.
Get company stuff back when people leave.
If the return or deletion of an asset isn't physically possible, entities must implement measures to ensure that those assets can no longer access their network and information systems. Practical tips include having specific procedures for personal equipment used for work, tracing information, securely deleting sensitive data, maintaining records of a policy implementation, incorporating these terms directly into employment and service contracts.
Put it in the contract.
Communicating these procedures during both induction and exit, conducting thorough employee exit interviews, and timely revoking credentials or isolating assets if they cannot be retrieved.
Thorough offboarding process.
Now let's wrap up our deep dive with a look at environmental and physical security, covered in Chapter 13. First, we have supporting utilities, 13.1. Entities must take proactive measures to prevent the loss, damage, or compromise of their network and information systems, and to prevent interruptions to operations due to the failure or disruption of supporting utilities.
13.1.1.
Power, cooling, internet. The basics.
The absolute basics. These measures, 13.1.2, include protection against interception and damage to utility lines themselves, actively monitoring utility services, and promptly reporting any events that fall outside predefined thresholds. It's also critical to conclude contracts for emergency supply, such as fuel for backup generator.
Backup power contracts. The guidance stresses ensuring the continuous effectiveness, monitoring, maintenance, and regular testing of essential utilities like electricity, temperature and humidity control, telecommunications, and internet connections. Examples of such measures include active or passive cooling systems, automatic restart capabilities for critical systems, robust battery backup power, reliable diesel generators with sufficient backup fuel, and uninterruptible power supplies, UPS or hot standby power generators.
Redundancy for utilities.
These measures should be fully integrated into your business continuity plan and disaster recovery plan. Routine tests and periodic reviews of these measures are mandatory. 13.1.3. Practical tips include simulating total power failure to test resilience and training staff on how to respond effectively during such events.
Test the backups regularly. Train staff.
Next, protection against physical and environmental threats. 13.2. Entities must prevent or at least significantly reduce the consequences of events arising from physical and environmental threats, such as natural disasters, or both intentional and unintentional human threats. This must all be based on a thorough risk assessment. 13.2.1.
Fires, floods, unauthorized access.
All of that. This involves designing and implementing robust protection measures. 13.2.2, determining clear minimum and maximum control thresholds for these threats, and continuously monitoring environmental parameters, reporting any exceptions. Measures can include comprehensive physical access controls like employee IDs, badges, detailed access logs, and visitor management systems, along with surveillance systems like CCTV. Climate control systems and robust fire prevention and response capabilities are also crucial.
Physical and environmental controls.
The guidance specifies that enhanced measures should be ready for deployment during heightened threat levels. These protection measures must be regularly tested, reviewed, and updated. 13.2.3, for example, through quarterly fire drills or annual physical security assessments. Tips include considering a specific, topic-focused policy for physical security and deploying periodic simulations and awareness campaigns for personnel.
Test physical security, too. Drills.
Finally, and critically, physical access control, 13.3. Entities must prevent any unauthorized physical access, damage, or interference to their network and information systems, 13.3.1. This means implementing robust perimeter physical access control, integrating it seamlessly with your logical and network access control systems, and ensuring full alignment with their human resources security procedures.
Locks on doors, basically, but more sophisticated.
A lot more sophisticated. Measures, 13.3.2, include physical security elements like key cards, biometrics, sturdy locks, dedicated security personnel, electronic entry control systems, careful segmentation of physical spaces, comprehensive CCTV coverage, fencing, barriers, guards, and alarms. You also need clear documented procedures for granting, reviewing, and revoking physical access rights to your facilities.
Layers of physical security.
These physical access control measures must be regularly tested, reviewed, and updated. 13.3.3. This includes conducting intrusion tests, essentially, trying to break in and performing security checks for any unauthorized exfiltration of information.
Have a break-in physically.
Yes, testing the controls. Tips include rigorously enforcing authorization for physical access to all systems, promptly removing individuals from access lists when they are no longer needed, documenting clear emergency procedures, meticulously logging and monitoring all physical access events, securely authenticating and escorting visitors, and maintaining comprehensive visitor records.
Visitor management is important.
It's also crucial to ensure employees are fully aware of secure areas and to have clear procedures for responding to intruders. Separate facilities for different levels of criticality and automated intrusion recognition are also recommended. And remember, video surveillance retention must comply with data protection regulations like GDPR, ensuring your organization is compliant with regulations and best practices across all these physical and environmental security measures, from utility management to physical access controls, is, well, crucial.
It really ties everything together.
It does. And for overarching guidance and resources on implementing these kinds of comprehensive best practices, checking out baseline.compliancehub.wiki, again, can be very helpful. They focus on those foundational security and compliance baselines.
Wow, what an incredibly comprehensive deep dive into ENISA's guidance. Today, we've truly underscored that robust cybersecurity isn't just about software and digital defenses. It's a truly holistic, multi-layered approach.
It really is. It's culture, process, technology, people, environment, everything.
It's about cultivating policies that permeate every single level of an organization, from the highest level strategic policies approved by the board, all the way down to the granular details of logging specific system events and even controlling physical access to your facilities.
We've seen the profound interconnectedness of seemingly disparate areas like meticulous risk management, rapid incident handling, resilient supply chain security, the often overlooked human resources element, and even the security of your physical environment.
It's all linked.
The world of cyber threats is relentless and constantly evolving, and so too must be our defenses, our understanding, and our adaptive strategies.
This ENISA guidance provides not just a set of rules, but practical, actionable insights for any entity navigating the complexities of NIS2. It's far more than a compliance checklist. It's a genuine roadmap for building resilient digital security from the ground up.
A roadmap is a good way to put it.
Understanding these detailed requirements empowers you to proactively identify vulnerabilities, mitigate risks before they escalate, and ensure critical business continuity in a landscape fraught with challenges. It truly allows you to go beyond just checking boxes and to genuinely secure your operations, protecting your invaluable data, your essential services, and your hard-earned reputation.
So, as technology continues its breakneck acceleration and new sophisticated threats emerge daily, how can organizations leverage comprehensive, living guidance like ENISA's to not just keep pace, but to actually foster a vibrant culture of continuous security improvement.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? Fostering the culture.
How can they transform the perceived burden of compliance into a distinct strategic advantage, one that fuels innovation and robust growth? What aspects of your current operations might be truly transformed by embracing these principles more deeply and comprehensively?
Something profound to ponder as you navigate your own digital landscape. Until next time, stay curious and above all, stay secure.